Hi, John Emmett. Jonathan Frank. Greetings from Denver. He must be on the road flying for United Airlines. Lake Middleton up in Minnesota. The land of 10,000 frozen lakes. Happy birthday from cloudy Seattle. Whose birthday is it? Stingray. Ed Worley saying hi. Joyce Shearell out in Hawaii. Top of the morning to all. Chris actually over in Leamington in the UK. We're in good shape here at the Beach Street Yacht Club, Studio B, as always. Warren Schasser down in Brisbane, and Oz is checking in. As we count down the last 15 or so seconds to our show number 504. Welcome.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon from San Francisco, where it's a beautiful day here. It's a bit chilly still, but you know, it's that time of year. But it is getting to be 60 degrees, 65 degrees even.
And getting to be daylight saving time.
This Sunday.
Yeah.
Indeed. Julia Veda-Kent, my co-host, the Commodore of the Beach Street Yacht Club, which people don't believe is really a yacht club. We're about to have our AGM on April Fool's Day.
As always.
As always.
And there's a reason for that.
And the BS stands for what? Beach Street or something else?
Depends on who's talking.
We've got 100 and almost 50 members from around the world.
We do.
Every continent except Antarctica, I think. Welcome to show number 504. I'm your host, Tom Eamon. Next Tuesday will be show number 505. We're going to talk a little bit about the 505 class next Tuesday. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Julia, do you know what day it is today?
Yes, I looked and I was trying to.
I put it on the, I'm now putting it in the show notes at the top of the show. Do you see that slide?
Oh, Plumber's Day. And good reason, because we need to call a plumber.
You got a leak up there in your
right.
in your bathroom in the Commodore's suite.
Yeah, well, I know.
I just turned the knobby hard yesterday, or just when I was up there helping to get you down here.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. Maybe we can plumb it ourselves. If not, we'll send for Paul Henderson. National. It's not national. It's World Plumbing Day.
Oh, that's even better.
It's even better. I try to pick world days, not national days. March 11th has been for some years World Plumbing Day. And I even have a video from Australia from a big plumbing company down there. Have a look.
Oh. Oh, yeah. Oh. Our Aussie friends will all know this.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's a national plumbing company called Jim's Plumbing. They have offices in all the major cities in Oz. They got an 800 number, or a 300 number, as you would say in Australia. Jim's Plumbing provided us with that YouTube video. It's Jim is Australia's plumber. There are locations all across the country, and you can call.
In the world.
You can call on their 300 number, Julia.
Yes.
Maybe they would come fix your faucet or send somebody local to do that.
The world can do without lots of things, but plumbers are not one of them.
Well, everyone needs a plumber, right? You need a mechanic, an auto mechanic, you need a plumber. You used to need a travel agent. Now everybody books themselves.
Right.
Are there any Aussies here who know that company? Phil Walker's in Italy. Julia looks great. She does look great, doesn't she?
Oh, how nice.
Well, that scarf goes beautifully with that dress. That's the new dress. Is that a new dress?
No, it's a nice old dress, which I love.
Yeah, Jonathan Frank, who is on the road to fly. He's a pilot for United, as I said at the top of the show. Warren Schasser is saying, excited to hear that Bang in the Corner is coming back on. Jody, when do we look for you? Yeah, Jody is, you see, he's doing a podcast. I think it's an audio podcast. Not sure if it's video.
He's on now.
Is Jody on? Good.
Yeah.
No, he's up early on their Saturday morning. It's 09:05 in Auckland, so it's 07:05 in Sydney. And if Andy Rose is watching, you wanted to wish him
Happy birthday. Again.
on local plumbing day. As Julia mentioned a moment ago, we do go on daylight time here in the U.S. on Sunday. Now we're leaving, contrary to what we did in the past, we're leaving the show at 2000 UTC. So you figure it out locally as you go on and off daylight time around the world. We will be leaving the show at 2000 UTC year round, which means come next Tuesday here in the States, it will air, and other places where you go on daylight time this Sunday, 1300 Pacific and 1600 Eastern for starting next Tuesday for the 6 or 7.5 months, whatever it is that we are on daylight time. But that's it. We're going to stay again at 2000 UTC, so you don't have to worry about, worrying what your local time zones are. You can all, I'm sure, figure that out. Julia.
And once you figure it out, you don't have to change it.
I'll say it one more time. I just wish we would decide to stay on daylight time or stay on winter time, whatever you want to do, and leave it. And
Yes.
if Arizona wants to split the state, or if Michigan wants to go in the central zone or whatever, and same for all of you wherever in the world,
I think
this flippy doodly
Yeah.
changey back and forth thing.
I think California in 2018 voted to go on daylight time.
Did we?
I was reminded of that in somebody else's thing, and now all we have to
Year
do
round daylight time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and all we have to do now is convince Congress to do the same thing.
Why does Congress have any say? It's up to the states, isn't it? Oh, there's some kind of a universal time act.
Mm.
Well, look, whatever you do in your countries, bravo Zulu to you. We will stay on 2000 UTC, which will change for us. I mean, I get an extra hour in the morning to prepare the show because we won't go live here in the U.S. till 1300
Right.
Pacific.
And it'll make all the difference in the world for you.
Well, it really does. It's a big
Yeah,
help.
I know.
Also, speaking of next Tuesday, Julie, you know who this gentleman is?
Yes.
And he will be with us again. He's been on the show once before. This is Mark Dunphy, who is the head of Kiwi Home Defense. And he's kindly agreed to come on the show next Tuesday and give us an update after they've done this massive campaign, this PR campaign
Yes.
down there.
I'm looking forward to hearing from him.
I am too. And I think it will be interesting. Now, not everybody is looking forward
I know.
to it. I got this note this morning from one of our FOSI. I'm sure he won't mind if I won't name him. He can name himself if
Yeah.
he wants. Kiwi Home Defense. This is a note I got, a DM from him in Europe. Kiwi Home Defense, forget about it, Tom. No matter how hard you try, the 37th America's Cup will be sailed in Europe. Barcelona now in the mix as well. Grant Dalton is desperately trying to find a venue outside New Zealand. I think I agree with him on that. He doesn't want any entanglements with Dunphy and the KHD. The ship has sailed. You have lost it all. That's from a good friend, a FOSI,
Yeah.
in Augsburg, Germany,
Oh.
Deutschland, and a sailor,
Yeah.
and a keen sailor. So that's not everybody agrees with us that it ought to be in New Zealand next time around. But I think with each passing day, with what's going on in Europe, I think it just gets dicier and dicier to try to hold an event in less than 2 years' time
Yes.
in Europe.
In an unprepared venue.
Well, let alone the Middle East, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we will press on here, see what other comments there are. Julie, you watching the comments as always?
Yes.
Who's got a comment? Just for the record, I did not send this mail no, it was not Gordon Smith, who also doesn't necessarily support Auckland, but he's not as vehement as that German FOSI from Augsburg. All will be revealed between 2025. I talked to Emmett this morning at length.
Yeah.
John has sent us, as I said in the show notes, not just one, his usual video. He sent another video. He's starting to do coaching type. I'll show it to you. It's really a good video. John thinks we're in this for the long haul, sadly. And I think a lot of us think that too. That is this war.
Oh,
Completely pushed COVID off the. I don't even have any COVID jokes in Whiskey Tango Foxtrot anymore.
Good heavens.
There's one there, though, that you're going to shake your finger at.
All right.
Remember the Nixon administration's Croutonic idea? Change it 2 hours. Yeah, Jonathan Frank, I remember that. That was Croutonic. I don't care if it's late, early, if you're in this. See, Michigan should be in, we said this before, should be in the central time zone, for example, where I grew up.
Right.
And that's because they wanted to stay on New York time because the New York Central Railroad went through Michigan and the timings.
Right.
But she really should be on Chicago time. But who cares? Let the locals decide. Hi, Tom. Ralph Roberts on World Plumbers Day. But there is only one plumber in the sailing world who walks the boat park, and he is Paul Henderson, your and my friend. Yeah, Ralph, thank you
Yes.
for that. Had I been thinking, I didn't know until I prepared the show last night, Julia, that this is World Plumbers Day.
Yes.
Had I been thinking, we would have at least
Had him introduced.
had Paul on, or,
Yeah.
except then we would have talked about the Olympics and world sailing in the old days. And
If he's listening, he can call in
he should.
Yeah.
And regardless, Julia, I think we should dedicate today's show
to Paul Henderson.
to Paul Henderson.
What a good idea.
What a good idea. Thank you. Thank you for that, Ralph Roberts. Standard time all the time, Hamchick is saying. Paul, here in Hawaii, see, Joyce out in Hawaii, comments up above. Here in Hawaii, we have no time changes at all. Yeah, they stay on whatever Hawaii.
Because 6
standard.
p.m. is 6 p.m. is 6 p.m. all year long because they're on the equator, sort of.
Well, they're not that much farther south.
Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah.
I just think they're smarter than we are.
No, they're Mexico City south.
Jody will have to get up even earlier. Actually, not Rob Fry. You guys, when you go on daylight time, the delta between, because I'll leave the show at 2000 UTC, and when you all go on daylight time down under, summertime as you call it in New Zealand, I think you call it summertime, daylight time in Oz, you will close up to us by an hour. So that's good. So instead of it being 5 hours to Sydney as it is now, it will be only 4. Any other comments, Julia? Seattle weather in Austin, Texas. Thank you, Bomb Cyclone. Yeah, they've got some rain and some weather down there, but everybody talks about the weather. Nobody does anything about it. Rob Fry says, good morning from Pauanui out on the beautiful Coromandel Peninsula in NZL. Where would TFE be without input from Aussie's cook? But give me a break time, Jim's Plumbing. That's Peter Stevenson is saying. When I go looking for YouTube videos, you search through and you find, first of all, you got to find one that's short.
Yep.
You got to find one that's not Indian.
Yeah.
There's so many Indian YouTube videos. And so, not that it has to be Anglo, but hopefully from one of the countries where we have a lot of viewers. And this Aussie Jim's Plumbing thing popped up. It's a national company.
Well, that's good.
It's like the McDonald's of plumbing, I think. Tell me if I'm wrong, Peter Stevens.
Or if you own it.
And maybe he owns a company. Even Grekoff is in Miami. Fritz Mueller is, too. There's some good racing going on down there in the Bacardi Cup. And what's the Bacardi Cup has, I made a note. It's got J70s. It used to be just the Star class, and now it's J70s, the 69er F, the foiler, the Star, of course, and the Melgris 24s. A lot of sailors down there, and they've got beautiful conditions, early spring conditions.
Susan Watson Kinney says, your favorite thing, always start a sailing article with the weather.
We've been, as you know, making this joke because people who, and again, we've got to get our PR experts back on here.
Right.
And speaking of Andy Rose, whose birthday it is today, and Susan Watson Kennedy, who does a fabulous job of the PR for the Governor's Cup, has for years. And we have this joke press release that Andy drafted some time ago that the headline is Champagne Sailing Conditions.
Yeah.
And then the first 3 paragraphs are about the weather, the 4th paragraph's about the race committee, and the 5th paragraph's about the Commodore of the Yacht Club. Finally, we get into the 6th paragraph, what Bernie Wilson would call the lead, the LEDE, in the press release talking about who won or who's leading.
Yeah.
That should be the headline. That should be the first paragraph. Champagne Sailing Conditions. Thanks, Susan Watson Kenny, down in Newport Beach. That club's coming up in April with their 100th anniversary. I may go down for that, yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Rob Fry says they've got this plumbing franchise. It's also an NZ, Jim's Mowing.
Oh, well, we can send him a bill.
Well, yeah. See, what Hamchick say, when told the reason for daylight savings time, the old Indian said only the government would believe that if you could cut a foot off the top of a blanket and sew it to the bottom, you'd have a longer blanket. Ben Nichols, great to see UKR sailors competing in Mallorca today. Is that true? Great. Good to hear that. Thank you. Julie Ahrens, it was nice to chat with you the other day. We had a long chat by phone. Hello from chilly Cleveland. Well, it's still that time of year. They just had a big snowstorm in my home state. Hello from chilly Cleveland, indeed. Baton Rouge and Charleston, VX1s. Oh, they're also sailing the VX1s at the Bacardi Cup. Thank you for that, Baton Rouge. Baton Cannon in Charleston. Are you there? In fact, Chris Exley is reminding us, not only that, Bacardi Cup also has the Viper 6 40s Cool. Okay, good stuff. Good stuff indeed. The starting line, I don't want to talk too much about the war. I don't even want to talk too much about the America's Cup venue today, believe it or not. There's so much other cool stuff going on in the sport. We got plenty of videos to show you as the curators that we are. And I just want to thank again Jyrki Järvi from Finland, who I think is here in California, not 100% sure. But the Baltics and Finland and maybe the Low Countries, Germany, Poland, it's bad enough what's going on in Ukraine, but God forbid that it carries on and that it, no pun intended, blows further west or to the south for that matter if there's a nuclear accident of some sort. Jyrki Järvi, who proposed that we all display the general recall flag, recalling the Russian army attacking Ukraine and showing some solidarity with Ukraine, whose flag, national flag, of course, is what we would say in Michigan, maize and blue for the University of Michigan.
Yeah.
But it's really blue and yellow, of course, like the general recall signal, the first repeater. And there it is on being displayed at a yacht club. I think that is Jyrki Järvi's club in Helsinki. And if your club is doing it, bravo Zulu. Hope that more people will display, more clubs will display that flag. I think it was a nice thing that we did for solidarity during COVID. We did that other signal proposed by San Francisco Yacht Club. The Gordian knot continues, and arguably since Tuesday it's gotten worse. Again, I had a long talk with John this morning. John is in close contact with a lot of Olympic sailors.
Yeah.
And people.
Emmett.
John Emmett, thank you. And people are, needless to say, nervous.
Oh gosh.
I still haven't decided if I should move myself in this split screen to the left, so when I look over here at you like that, and you look at me,
yeah.
But I think everybody knows that.
Yeah, I understand.
That I'm looking to my left because we have the way the cameras are situated here. Because I have to switch the show and look at this big screen in front of me. So that's why that's a bit cryptic. But Ukraine, we're thinking of you, those poor folks. And even I also, Julia, I feel sorry for the Russian soldiers because I don't think they want to be there.
Or necessarily know why they are there.
And I think they're starting to figure it out. And I think the reason they're there is to fight the West, and they're being told that. And I think people are figuring out in a hurry, this is a war against the West, and it's not necessarily Ukraine. And let's just hope it doesn't go any further than Ukraine. God forbid maybe something happens and they pull into retreat sooner than later. What do you think? What are the chances of that happening? Are you watching the war on TV?
I am, but I can only take a couple hours a day.
Yeah, I watch an hour in the morning and an hour at night, and then wait for some
newsflash.
Yeah, notification on the phone.
Yeah, it's very depressing.
And again, I like that local people are making local decisions about whether to let Russians or Belarusians or anybody else sail or not sail. That's the way it should always be, including and especially now. So I think now there is a website, and I didn't put it in because we got a big show, called Super Yacht. It's the YouTube channel, I should say.
Yeah.
And they do a daily report about which yachts of these oligarchs are going in which directions, and they're following them, and there's a lot of other people tracking them, the way that kid was tracking Elon Musk's plane for a while.
Yeah.
Well, that kid now is tracking the oligarchs, as are a lot of other people.
Right.
But I commend you, if you go on YouTube, it's just Super Yacht YouTube channel, I think it's called. And it's getting hundreds of thousands of views as people wait to see who's going in which direction.
Are they still all going to the
Maldives?
And the Maldives,
the Maldives, right? As David, when he was filling in for you, David James, he had that tip on TFE Live before it was on the news.
Right.
Let's get to the starting line. We're past the starting. Let's get to our master mentor, John Emmett, who has submitted not one but two videos today. They're both terrific. Have a look.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the FOSI. I'm reporting today from a wet and windy Southampton, and a little bit of sailing footage again from the Ilka class. Of course, this is what I do, so there's always going to be a lot more footage of the Ilkas than anything else. So I think that's what happens if you become an expert. You have to spend a lot of time in that one thing, and I'm very lucky to be involved in the Olympic classes, and I feel now it's actually quite a dark time. When we look at the news, it's dominated by the well, the war in Ukraine. People are calling it other things, but it's very clearly a war, and it shouldn't be underestimated in the seriousness, especially because it looks likely that Russia is considering using chemical weapons. So it's a very sad time, and it will be strange to be at those big international regattas without the Russian and Belarusian sailors. And as I said, I think it is the right thing, and it will have effect on all of us, not just the price of petrol at the gas station. For Lily, the visa application, which would have been a couple of weeks, now could easily be 6 months, even if she can find an appointment. But that's nothing compared to the suffering some people will be experiencing in Ukraine. What is of course interesting is the things that don't make the news. I mean, COVID is still there. I mean, COVID is probably a lot more predictable than people think. It's not like trying to choose lottery numbers. There's very good mathematical models for how the virus is replicating and spreading and so on and so forth. But just because we don't hear about it so much anymore doesn't mean it's not there. I mean, for me, it's always been about negative outcomes, people who have long COVID or life-changing issues. But it's still very serious, and it's still something which vulnerable people from the sailing community need to be careful about. In fact, thinking of China, it looks like Shanghai, which is one of the almost COVID zero policies, may go into more or less full lockdown next week, the same as it was 2 years ago. So I think probably the UK there has fairly good balance in terms of getting back to normal with, I think, almost negligible excess death. But it's the things that aren't on the news that are still going on. And one of the big ones is the Paralympics. And I think this is just such an amazing thing. And of course, I wish all the very best to British and Ukrainian athletes. I mean, it's just not going to get the coverage it would do normally. And it's a sad thing that the sailing is not part of it. And that's something that I find really disappointing, because I know the athletes, a lot of the British athletes especially personally, and they should have that platform. And I hope, deeply hope, that's something that can return. So I really encourage people to try and do their bit for the sport, and to just take care of yourselves and each other. Hope you have a great show, and we'll see you next week.
Now, oh, there's more here. Loud music. It wakes us up. Gets us going. Another nice report. I better turn that music down a bit there. It's good. But I think, Julie, what we're going to do, and I propose this to John, pending your approval and what the rest of the FOSI think, I think we're going to lead the show with John's report going forward, because he kind of sums a lot of stuff up. He brings another view besides our own. Mm-hmm. And gives us kind of an outside perspective. And he's raised the idea of how, and he's right, how sad it is that the Paralympians, first of all, that sailing's not there. We can't forget that. We got to push that back into the sport. Mm-hmm. So that's a great point. I had no idea they were about to close down Shanghai because of COVID. COVID's kind of, as we said a minute ago, off our radar screens all of a sudden. God forbid Dr. Fauci, he is not a FOSI. No. Dr. Fauci is no longer in the news here. He's kind of all of a sudden gone to ground. No one wants to hear from him. So I think we're going to lead with John's from now on with his reports, because they not only are good, but then everybody wants to know if he's clean shaven or not.
Yeah, the dues will go up. Yeah.
Middleton Blake is saying, I'm behind the idea of leading with John's report. We'll just lead with it, right? At the starting line, we'll lead with it. Ed Worley, the clubs and sailing event committee should coordinate and put coverage and footage of the races on YouTube. Yes, indeed. Well said, John. Jonathan Frank, nice. Gordon Smith agreeing, nice. Replying to Stingray, you go back and forth to the comments. But Wedlock is observing that he's clean shaven and haircut. Shotgun, yeah, it's because Lily, as he said, is home. Sounds good. Mary Jude Szymanski agrees, so that's what we will do. Now, speaking of his videos, he's also doing these training videos, and I did not know that they have a laser training regatta or racing regatta not quite every weekend in Great Britain, and not just in Weymouth, for example, at the training academy at the National Sailing Center, but in different parts of the country where laser sailors and coaches get together and help each other and learn to sail better. We wonder why the UK is so good in this Olympic class and others. Have a look at this very nicely produced video from John Emmett Sailing.
The last weekend of the UKLA winter training before the spring qualifiers saw a bumper turnout of nearly 100 boats across all the venues. The theme this weekend was boat handling and sail controls, looking at when, how, and perhaps more importantly, why to adjust the sail controls and therefore adjust the rig itself. Excellent training and so much more quality training to come. So we're here at the March UKLA training, and I have somebody who's new to the class, so it's lovely to have you here. Can you introduce yourself?
So my name is Imi, and I've just transitioned from the topper class into the Ilka 4.
And where do you normally sail, and how many days have you done in the Ilka 4?
Well, I'm based at Warsash Sailing Club, and yesterday was my second day in the laser.
Wow, so that's a real baptism of fire. Tell us a little bit about this weekend, what you learned and what the conditions were like.
So this weekend I've been learning about how my controls affect the sail and where the centre of effort are, and I've been getting better at starting, I believe.
Yeah, no, I mean, I saw lots of improvement with absolutely everybody, and I think that's one of the things when you train as a group, everybody improves over a weekend, and perhaps you don't realise till you go back and you sail at your usual location. What's the main difference between the topper and the Ilka? I know it's hard to say after 2 days, but
yeah. So I feel like the laser definitely goes faster through waves because of how it's pointed at the front, whereas the topper almost just goes straight through it or just kind of slams over it, so a lot faster.
And a little bit about the conditions of the weekend, because people are going to see the video, or they've seen some of the video by now, but how was it for you?
So the conditions were very windy, quite gusty, and at times it was also quite shifty. But yeah, overall it was around 20 knots.
And we still got out, still had a nice time, lots of coaches, lots of people on the water.
Yeah, definitely, it was very good. I enjoyed it a lot.
That's what we want to hear. Well, really hoping to see it, lots more training, but also a few events, and yeah, all the best for the 2022 season.
Thank you.
Julie, you were going to say.
She's charming.
She's charming, and John's getting better and better at this.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, this video is so professional. How'd you produce this? And he said, apparently, one of Lily's, who you said at the head of that video, looks so good. And apparently, one of her colleagues, she studied radio, television, or maybe still is at Southampton University, radio, television, and film. And she's got a colleague who's a videographer, producer, editor. Editing a video like that takes a long time, which is why I'm too lazy to do YouTube videos. We go live, and if it's fine, it's fine. If it's croutonic, well, we make a few croutonices, and if it's excellent, well, then we're lucky. But nice stuff from John Emmett Sailing. Get to the front of the fleet. Ed Worley agrees. Great videos. John's vids on YouTube are excellent. I watch them often. Gordon Smith says, great idea with the 4.7 sailor. So cool. Jonathan Frank says, all kids should get this sort of attention and training. Great PR. Yes, that's what Julie and I were saying, Jonathan Frank. She's so poised and smart. But I think, and again, I don't know, Julia, if sailing attracts people who are poised and bright and self-confident, because that's what it takes to sail, or if we help create people. I'm sure it's a little of...
I was going to say, yeah.
The cause and effect, I think, is, oops, I don't have camera 2 on, and I'm turning over here to camera 2, looking like a crouton because I'm on the split screen. There you talk about a croutonicism. So,
no,
that's live TV. That's the biggest mistake I make through this whole show.
Live TV is much more interesting than edited.
And I see Pindar's on. Hello, Andrew. He's saying the rain, apparently Monica says it's raining like crazy. Thanks, Monica, for your submissions for this show. She's been helping, along with Stingray, to get the news out of Spain. The rain in Spain stays mainly on the Monica Diaz, raining on Monica Diaz.
Yeah.
Raining like hell, actually, she says. La lluvia in Sevilla es pura maravilla. I don't know the word maravilla. Thanks,
Marvelous.
Well, I don't think it means marvelous. I think it means something else. All because we follow the positive example set by Julia. Yes, links to Emmett's videos would be nice. Also, he posted a link a minute ago up there to a GoFundMe for Ukrainian Opti sailors who are trying to continue to sail in Valencia at that training camp.
Oh,
and,
good.
you know, those, I mean, honest to God, the Red Cross here, I see Fox and CNN and others are making big campaigns, please, for people to make donations to the Red Cross in honor, not in honor, to the benefit of the Ukrainians.
Yeah.
Sad day. This day in history is a bit of a, you know, I never know what to pick out, if I should pick out some kind of an America's Cup thing that Hamish Ross helps me with, or something that's, you know, a little more earth-shaking than the America's Cup. But apropos everything that's gone on in the world, I try to pick something that maybe is water-related and maybe is, maybe even better yet, still sailing-related. But this one is only in the biggest of pictures. Here's your first clue. This day in 2018, not too long ago. You know what that is? That's your first clue. That is the National People's Congress in Beijing in 2018. And what happened at that Congress? Here's your second clue.
He was elected.
He was elected what? Well done.
President.
John will know. He was elected president. President Xi Jinping elected president for life. I didn't realize this.
I didn't know it was
China's
for life.
National People's Congress approves the removal of term limits for a leader, at least for this leader, will allow Xi Jinping presidency for life. Yes, Stingray had it. Xi elected for life. Emmett knew that. Of course, his wife is Chinese. The lovely and very talented Lily. And, you know, she had, the other thing John told me this morning, she has 2 million followers on social media, mostly Chinese.
Yes.
I'm a follower, but mostly Chinese because she's the first gold medalist in our beloved sport from China.
Yeah.
And has a huge social media following.
She deserves it.
She does indeed. This day in history, 11th of March, 2018. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. If he is supporting Russia, do you think he's supporting Russia? Do you think he's leading Russia along to try to weaken them and weaken us? And then he's going to pull back his support?
I bet.
I don't know. Scary times.
It is.
Speaking of scary times, here's another incident from a little earlier, 11 years ago. It's hard to believe it's been 11 years. You know what that is? I'll give you a clue. It's Japan. 11 years ago today, the 11th of March, 2011, there was an earthquake.
I was going to say there was an earthquake. Yeah.
9.0 earthquake, and that is that Fukushima nuclear plant.
Oh, yeah.
And I was reading an article today in preparing the show that as a result of the radiation that blew out of there and still a little bit is leaking in here and there, we've all gotten the equivalent of one X-ray from that plant. I mean, the locals, forget about the locals, all the terrible stuff. It's not Chernobyl, Gordon Smith. That's Fukushima. Yeah, Clark Chapin, Fukushima #1.
Yeah.
Chinese banks are supporting those who cannot use Visa, etc. John Emmett is saying, yeah, they've got their own system too. The Chinese have their own SWIFT system and will buy all of the oil and gas and wheat and whatever else that we don't buy from Russia. Is there, Julia, I saw something, you know, I have the news here on the TV. Did I see something? There's an American astronaut up in the space station that the Russians are not going to bring back or didn't bring back?
I didn't see that.
We'll have Elon Musk go to the rescue of that thing. I'm hearing a crew got injured and tragically died during Antigua super yacht. Correct or correct? I don't know, Phil Walker. Remember, China Union Pay is the largest credit company, over $7 billion issued. I did not know that. Andrew Pindar's on Fuka Rush. God forbid there is a nuclear accident or worse, something intentional or chemicals.
Oh gosh, and it'd be so easy to do.
And I was saying to Emmett this morning, I hope and don't think we'll get involved in this. That is the West, unless there's a certain bright line or red line that is crossed, Julia.
Yes.
If there's chemical weapons used
Yep.
against the Ukrainians, if there's a nuke, tactical or otherwise, or an accident that the intelligence services are convinced was started, even a false flag. Okay, enough about the war. Enough about Fukushima. Enough about Xi Jinping. Let's talk about yacht racing and sailing. We have some very cool, good news. A Bravo Zulu here. This from New Zealand. And I wouldn't have known about this if I wasn't reading the Eurosailing news every day. Do you know who this youngster is? Ralph Roberts probably does.
No.
Who else will know on here? Any of you Kiwis that'll know? Rob Fry probably knows who it is. This is Hugo, or as we would say in Germany, Hugo Davies, and he is one of 3 Seahorse Magazine's nominees for Sailor of the Month.
Wow.
He's 10 years old.
And what did he do?
What did he do? Good question. So Hugo Davies, whose father is famous and a longtime friend. What hope is there, Seahorse Magazine said, for the rest of us? Is it something in the Kiwi drinking water? Team Davies, the old boy, meaning, well, his dad, we'll tell you about, Ray Davies, many of you will know. The old boy on the wire and 10-year-old Hugo, they probably say in New Zealand, on the stick, waltzed their way to this year's Cherub title in New Zealand. I think it was the North Island Cherub title, but nonetheless, ending the 10-race series with a perfect score. I mean, if that doesn't deserve applause, I don't know what.
And I reckon, and yes, they did discard a race win.
A race win. They discarded a race win. To runners-up, Brad Merrick. I don't know their last names. Commiserations. That's some hot fleet you got going down there. Hell of a job, Hugo. Hell of a job. And to the Opti parents, maybe join the 21st century, because this is a boat with a bowsprit and a kite and a wire for the crew.
Mm-hmm.
And here is Ray and Hugo, his
Isn't
son.
that fun?
And
Yeah.
his father, we keep talking about it on this show, about how much all of us have learned by sailing with adults,
Absolutely.
with older folks, with my parents, my dad, my mom, and so on, and how important it is. This kid must be learning heaps sailing with now Coach Ray Davies. He's won the Cup as a crew and as a navigator. I'm not sure what all he did on the boats, but he's now coaching Team New Zealand, or was, and they have won the Northland Championship at, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Algies Bay on the North Island in New Zealand. Daddy on the wire and 10-year-old on the helm. An amazing 2 days racing, according to Sail World. 2 days racing in this bay for the New Zealand Cherub fleet. What even a cool name for a boat. Cherub. Everyone wants. Why wouldn't you want to go sail a Cherub?
Right.
Contesting the Northland Cherub Championship over the first 2 days of Auckland's anniversary weekend. So it was at the end of January. Huge congratulations to Hugo on his boat heart attack, right, named by his dad, who, even with having to put up with dealing with his father, Ray, crewing for him, managed a brilliant perfect score card over a variety of conditions over those 2 days. Merrick got a well-deserved break from his old man, also an upgraded to the much nicer Brad Marsh. I don't know who Merrick, since the Kiwis on here will know, to take out a closely contested second place in Vamoose. And Tim Roper and the brand new Roper design, he's a designer builder of these boats, at least designer, in undercover sailed a very consistent regatta to round out the podium, with James Miller swinging her down with some impressive crewing. Algies, is it? I don't know how to pronounce that. Bay turned on the conditions again, and 7 great races were sailed. And you know who else sailed in that? There were some other America's Cup fathers and sons or daughters.
I don't know.
Dean Parker was crewing for his son. I mean, think about this.
That's
you go to a
super.
regatta, and you got Dino there, you got Ray Davies there, and their kids are sailing. And fantastic. But wait, there's more.
Uh-oh.
I just want to give you an idea what this Cherub fleet looks like, because it's growing like proverbial Topsy in New Zealand for whatever reason. That's not their boat. Their boat was 2757, I think. This is 2759. But look at how cool this boat is. It's a skiff
Hmm.
And you don't think that's tough to sail, to helm, let alone crew, for an old man like Ray? Ray,
Yeah.
by the way, is a consummate, not only veteran of the America's Cup and yacht racing, he's a Renaissance man. He's a bass player.
Oh.
I've played rock and roll with him at various regattas around the world. Rock and roll, too, not just, jazz stuff, but he's really a good bass player and a
Oh.
lot of fun.
Good to know.
Ray Davies and his son Hugo decimated the fleet in their yacht. Heart attack, straight bullets. 13 boats contested the regatta over the weekend, and with more than 20 other boats saleable in New Zealand and more than 10 under build.
Wow.
It's a really exciting time for the 70-year-old class that is now New Zealand's top restricted class.
It's interesting that it's 70-year-old. Why did it suddenly pop up again?
That's a good question. I think it's like most other fleets. You get a spark plug or two or three in the class. Famous people sailing the boat. Other people are attracted to the boat, even to the sport. Like when the Kennedys got involved in the 60s in our sport, suddenly everybody wanted to go sailing. What comments do I have here? Jazz is harder than rock and roll, Tom. Thanks, Paul Homchick. I being a jazz bassist, a good rock bass is tough too. It's fun. Cherub class started in 1951, Ben Nichols is saying. Andy Robertson is on. Hi, Andy. Lots of, Julia, I'm also here watching on my phone.
Yeah.
We got the comments up here on the big screen you can see over here, and you've got them on your computer. People were asking me the other day, what are those two things? Are those for show or not on Julia's table? And point to your monitor that has the show slide, whatever the current slide. Point to your monitor. Say you're on camera. No, your monitor. There you go.
Yeah.
That's so Julia can see what's live going out on the show. And then her computer next to her has the comment screen on it, which is the same thing as that I have over here. So we can read your comments, at least the most recent ones. But I'm seeing on the phone, I also, because I got Facebook on the phone, I can see who's signing on, who hasn't necessarily commented. And by the way, if you do sign on and you want to become a FOSI, which is nothing more than somebody who's a regular here and comments and helps out, maybe he's been on the show, maybe gives us a few Patreon bucks a month.
Yeah.
Then you're a super FOSI.
Oh, yes.
Just say hi and tell us where you are, and because it's a friendly group. And there's no name calling, no trolling. I mean, it's astonishing. People come on here and say, wow, I've never seen anything like this. Although there's starting to be some trolls on YouTube. You know why?
Why?
See, Karen uses her real name. Wet Hog, we don't really, I do know Wet Hog's real name. He's a good guy. John Emmett Sailing. On YouTube, you don't have to use your real name. Facebook, you got to pretty well use your real name.
Well, that's better.
It is. No comments, no name calling, no personal attacks. The Leach kit boats have revolutionized building competitive boats at home again in OKs too. What are Leach kit boats? That must be a brand or a type, Karen Robertson in Scotland. Thank you for that.
Maybe these
must be a type of somebody's making them.
Yeah.
It must be Leach, must be somebody's name who has these kits, is making these kits. Fritz Mueller is saying it starts with a good design, affordable to build. Oh, affordable to build, like the OK Dinghy, exactly. Like the Opti used to be, like the DN Ice boat was and still is. Class advocates, Blake Middleton is saying, are key to growth. Totally agree. You get people who are spark plugs, as I call them, class advocates, a fancier name because Blake's obviously smarter than I. As a developing class, or at least more articulate, new designs bring new enthusiasm. John Emmett, good point. Good point.
And he also says that OKs have seen a huge increase in numbers.
John is, he is. Andy Robertson, a Kiwi designer. Yeah, okay. So this must, Karen's referring to Leach, the Leach kit boats as a Kiwi designer. Clark Chapin, info on the Cherub. Thank you for that link. James Frederick Bland, who's building a boat. We're going to get James on here to tell us what the hell he's doing. Because it's really cool. Painstaking work in his garage, in his driveway. In Texas, Dan Leach, naval architect in Christchurch. So you all know the guy. Well, bravo Zulu to the kid, 10 years old, Hugo. And we love stories like this.
Yes.
And I just am delighted to have that near the top of the show, like Emmett's reports, and we can forget about war and COVID for a minute.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Also check out Don McIntyre. Check out ClassGlobe580.com, a new mini Class 180 boats building in 27 countries in the first 2 years.
Wow.
Cool. What a smart, well-connected group we have.
Yeah.
What a cool group, Julia. We're lucky.
We are.
Speaking of luck, here's another interesting report that came from the ocean race today. And it's interesting that they are featuring the older boats. They're celebrating the first edition of the race, 73, 74, and talking about Sir Peter Blake and some of the other veterans. Really, they were the founders, the forebears of this race. Great Britain, too, a participant of the first Whitbread Round the World edition, 1973-74, and they said about this boat and the others, remember, it was a bring-your-own handicap race. Racer cruiser yachts as strong as they are comfortable. Does that look comfortable?
Well, more comfortable than a lot of.
Exactly. These boats that they're racing now, which were, I'm told by some people who were involved in the design, that they were asked, these VO 70s or whatever, the 65s, whatever they are now, they were purposely designed to be wet, to be rough and tumble and wet, so that when they go across the Southern Ocean, it looks good on TV. Excuse me. We'll see how the Imoca 60s go, if there's more than just the one or two or handful of them in this next race, which starts, now it's been pushed to January. I think we reported that before. It had been pushed to later this year. There's the schedule. I can't keep track of it, so I figure the rest of you can't either. Alicante, start of leg one is the 15th of January, 2023. And they race to Cabo Verde. And then to Cape Town. They'll go down and see our FOSI there. That's always a beautiful stopover. Ted Ryman and co. Then Julia, all the way from Cape Town to your favorite town on
Itajaí.
this. Itajaí, where you and your late husband used to spend some time in that beautiful fishing town in Brasil. And then from Brazil up to my favorite town in the sailing town in the world, Newport. New Portia up in Newport in Rhode Island, Brad Reed and co. Then across to Aarhus, Denmark. You're going to fly by Kiel, Germany this time. And then a stopover in Den Haag, The Hague in the Netherlands. And then finally, the finish will be back in the Med, from whence they started, not Genoa, but they will go back to Genova to Genoa, Italy, for the past Alicante, for the finish in Italia, in estimated 25th of June, thereabouts, 2023. And then there's yet another import race a few days after that. So there is the schedule.
Wow.
As you in the Commonwealth would say. Jonathan Frank, Hugo Boss, that Imoca is a torture chamber. Poor Alex had to wear noise-canceling headsets.
Huh.
Yeah, indeed. There's J. Frederick Bland. James Bland has a link to some news from the OK Dinghy Worlds. Ted Ryman, I sailed that boat back from St. Lucia to Cowes in 97. Any other comments there, Julie, we should mention? Not hard to figure out who I am. I watch on YouTube now because FB freezes on my old iPad. No, we know who Wet Hog is, and when he wants to tell us his name, he will.
The Don McIntyre says 23 yachts around the world. Around the world, 50th, with sextants, including Taberley and Pendrick.
Yeah, on Pendrick 6, starting September 10th. 50th anniversary of the Whitbread. Yeah, that's the global. It's the Ocean Globe Race. We're going to have Don McIntyre on here to tell us about that. I haven't given it much coverage yet. But that, there's a lot of people think that's way more interesting than these new rough boats. SF Pelican. Thank you, James Bland, for that. Let's get into the America's Cup, and we will talk a little bit about the Cup, but not necessarily about the venue, except I can't help myself. With the help of Monica and a few others, we do have some updates. As we told you on Tuesday's show, the New York Yacht Club American Magic has confirmed their core sailing team, and they put out a release. I'm not going to, I just summarize it here with the first paragraph. Today, the New York Yacht Club American Magic, the U.S. sailing team challenging for the 37th America's Cup, confirmed the initial core sailing team roster. Coach Tom Burnham, Lucas Calabrese, Andrew Campbell, Riley Gibbs, bravo Zulu for getting Riley in there. Paul Goodison, of course, a terrific sailor that he is. Michael Meninger, another. These are great sailors. And Newport, Rhode Island's own Dan Morris. We asked the question then, in this beautiful, is that a Carlo Berlanghi? Can't remember whose photo that was. Is Tom Slingsby on the horizon for American Magic? We don't know. A lot of you think it is. He is. And we shall see. But more importantly now, let's go visit the crew complement. I think I've played this video before. If I didn't, I should have. Very interesting video laying out what's new with the class rule for AC-37 and how it impacts the crew. Have a look.
Lighter winds was a nemesis for this class of yacht as a whole, and some teams got around that problem better than others. But that being said, the problem was kind of inherent in the design of these boats, and a lot of the changes in the class rule have happened to attack that problem. So crew numbers coming down, weight coming out of foils, no code zeros, winches off the boat as well. All these changes begin to add up, and you can end up with a lighter platform. And as well as the weight, the span of the foils has changed as well. So there's been a big push within the development of the class rule to get these boats up and out the water and falling around in less wind. The crews come down to 8, and another big change is that they've put a control in on how many people can provide power. So 4 people can provide power to the yacht, and they can do that either through grinding or cycling, or any other means if the team decides to go down another route. Not quite sure what that would be. That does make some pretty substantial changes to the playbook. It means that you have to free up 4 people between them helming, piloting and trimming roles. But exactly how teams decide to break that down, I think will develop, and I'm sure no team will be exactly the same in how the playbook works. I think the AC-40 should be an amazing boat to sail and an amazing boat to race. It's going to be nice to have some preliminary regattas to get our teeth into in the build up to AC-37. The AC-40 will be sailed by a crew of 4, and then everything will be powered by batteries. So yeah, no cycles, no grinders on the small boat, and a 4-man crew. So yeah, I'm excited to see how exactly it ends up looking. Very much looking forward to getting out in the next boat. I suppose watch this space.
Watch this space indeed. Another nice video by Ineos Britannia. I think I played that before, but there's so much information, good information, succinct info in that video apropos what we're talking about with crew and selection of crew and core crew and so on.
Yeah.
Thought we should play that again. We're not amused with the cyclors when that comment.
No, I mean, you can't watch them. Even, I mean, you know, it's not sailing.
It's not sailing, is it? It's just, and I'm thinking about all these changes. Look at all these other comments, but I'm thinking about all these other changes and how expensive that is relatively to redesign boats, to even if you're going to use an old boat. In a way, the AC-40s could be more exciting because of closer racing. Yes, John Emmett, I think we all agree with that. Don Lunabos, greetings from Sonoma up north of the bridge. Here in beautiful wine country, the AC-40s will be fun, Monica thinks, and I agree. I think they'll be fun, but this cup has gotten so expensive with hydrogen chase boats that you got to buy, with redoing the boats again. Okay, you always have to design, build a new boat, but when you can't even use your old boat as a trial horse without making major mods, and I'll say it when we get to the venue. Fleet racing, the AC-40s could be a demolition derby fog machine.
Oh, yeah.
Saying, yeah, maybe. I hope not. I would just see what's going to happen here. You know, he thought a lot of this was going to happen with the AC World Series regattas last time. Did those happen? No. And with what's going on now in the war, this year and beyond, I do hope that hydrogen boats will filter down to grassroots sailing in the next 20 years. Yeah, okay, that's the upside of this. Ed Worley is saying it's sad that the crews keep shrinking and more automated, electronified,
I agree.
if that's a word, battery-operated controls. Elon Musk, when will he do an America's Cup team? See.
Whenever he wants to.
He's too smart to do an America's Cup team, Julia. He's smarter than that. See, that's one reason I like keeping myself on the right, because then when I switch from one of those slides,
Yeah.
or from your slide to this slide. We don't do the big flipper do there on
Right.
the screen. So
That's right.
if we get the split screen and you and I look at our cameras instead of at each other,
Yes.
you know, like they do on network television,
Yes.
rather than like this,
Yeah.
maybe it's okay. Any other comments? Yep, as Yogi Berra once said, we'll be smarter when we know more. Clark's always got these
Yes.
pithy comments. Thanks to Ineos Britannia for that video. And now the headline a couple days ago down in New Zealand, this is an article from Stuff about Dean Barker.
Yeah.
And the headline is Dean Barker, America's Cup winner, but so often the nearly man. And this is a tough article, but it's true. And he says nice things about Dean because Dean's a hell of a nice guy. Duncan Johnstone writing for stuff.co.nz. It's an opinion piece. Officially, Dean Barker is an America's Cup winner way back in, 2000 when Russell Coutts let him sail that last race. But the likable Kiwi will likely be better remembered as the nearly man. And he is likable. He's a hell of a nice guy, humble, quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Barker's long Cup career appears to be at a crossroads, Duncan Johnstone is saying, as his name was absent from American Magic's core crew list released on Wednesday. The New York Yacht Club Syndicate was his lifeline, with continuity there his best option to stay in the game under the tough new nationality rules. The reality is the New Zealand door shut on Barker in the wake of the 2013 heartache. What did Bernie Wilson call that? The crushing defeat, soul-crushing defeat. It's a great expression. In the heart of the heartache in San Francisco, I left my heart in San Francisco. This is Dino, who steered race 5 in the 5-0 win by Coutts & Co. and the late, great, it was sad. What a sad thing. He should be back with ETNZ, Monica Diaz. They're never going to have him back. So that's Dino and Russell. The Red Sox campaign, the defense in 2000. Oh, it was 4-0. Oh, no, it was 5-0. That's right. Barker's Cup success came in the 2000 home defense when Sir Russell handed him the wheel after they were up 4-0 and asked him to deliver the knockout blow to Italy's Luna Rossa. And everybody thought, okay, here we go. Dino's on the scene for good. Well, Barker duly delivered on Coutts' confidence in that effort to put him in charge of the Team New Zealand boat for the following 13 years. It was a rocky ride, with Barker initially overseeing the embarrassing 5-0 loss to Alinghi in 2003, when the Kiwi boat literally fell apart and the whole campaign buckled under the pressure of trying to overcome the might of his mentor, who had jumped ship with his tight 5 to Swiss colors with the bulk of the sailing talent, to Alinghi. With Team New Zealand's very existence threatened, Barker got the nod from his new master, Grant Dalton, who stepped in to provide the superb fundraising skills, I might editorialize, and managerial expertise to keep the Kiwi syndicate afloat after that humiliating loss in 2003. I'm not going to read the whole article, obviously. Julie Ahrens is agreeing Dean is a very nice guy. He's just not a team player. He's just very independent thinker. He gets too confident. Yeah. And Stingray, Dean Barker made some comments about the crew nationality rules in the New Zealand Herald. He's not a fan of them. And, okay, you can go back and read the comments, including my mother, who's making pies.
What's Pie Day?
No, it's not Pie Day. Pie Day is Monday, right?
Yeah.
Next week's a big week.
It is.
It's Pie Day.
Yes.
We've got 2 shows as usual. It's St. Pat's Day. It's your birthday.
Yeah.
Something else is going on.
Yeah.
It's Fallas, Las Fallas in Valencia. Okay, but back to Dino. So Duncan Johnstone says it was a whole new scene, and Barker was at the forefront of these. He's now fast forwarding to 13, when these monster boats, the AC-72s, were comfortable and Dino was comfortable in astonishing speeds. It was plain sailing through a weak Challenger Series in San Francisco, and the match appeared a cakewalk too, as TNZ raced out to an 8-1 lead, and they were on match point, as we all remember.
I remember it well.
That started one of the most gutting chapters in Kiwi sport, as Oracle chipped away at Team New Zealand, and their Australian skipper Jimmy Spithill started eating into Barker's lunch or into his confidence with daily taunts at the press conferences to eventually lose the cup 9-8 and be victims of one of the greatest comebacks in sport was a dagger to Barker, who took the defeat heavily on a personal level. The biggest blow came when Dalton informed him he would no longer be on the wheel, offering him a coaching job for 2017 to help introduce the new breed of talent led by Pete Burling and Blair Tuke to the ruthlessness of America's Cup for, as I said, Bermuda 2017. A disappointed Barker declined, adamant he still had more to offer racing cup boats. Others agreed. Team Japan snapped him up. Well, really, Oracle, who was sponsoring Team Japan, snapped him up. Coots picked him up to helm the 50-foot foiling catamaran, and he led them to a semifinal finish in the Challenger Series, won by Team New Zealand, who went on to reclaim the America's Cup from Oracle. And, of course, that was another series, Julie, when he was up 4-2 and lost 5-4, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, it was sad.
In that semifinal. So that's getting stuff. And just wrapping it up, Duncan Johnstone says his good mate Terry Hutchinson, now in charge of American Magic, referring to this most recent cup, signed him, Dino, up for a campaign that began with much promise but literally ended upside down with a dramatic capsize in the Challenger Series.
Oh, yeah.
The sight of Barker and Hutchinson grimly holding on as the American Magic boat started to submerge with a massive hole in its hull sink, really, remains an enduring image. We'll all probably never forget that. Well, we were on here live covering it with a watch party. And that image, scary then. And, of course, Terry T. Hutch was caught under the mainsail.
And for longer than we knew he was missing, but not why and not for how long.
He told us on the show. You'd never say never in a contest that is famous for its twists and turns on and off the water. Experience is something money can buy in the America's Cup, even in advisory roles. There are plenty of gray hairs in wealthy syndicates, people who know the ins and outs of yachting's most competitive game. Barker oozes expertise that could transfer across a range of roles, but it also remains a brutal environment, famously labeled as a contest where, quote, there is no second, quote. Barker knows that better than anyone else.
Yeah.
That, a nice article, and I think a fair article by Duncan Johnstone yesterday. It actually was today. Yesterday. I think it was the 10th. Maybe it came out.
He's still very handsome.
He is a nice guy. He's a handsome guy, a family man, a wife, and 2 or 3 kids now that are also equally nice folks. Comments, the best series in Bermuda was Team Japan versus Artemis in Big Wind. It was fantastic. Yeah, Stingray was there, if I remember well. A day that will live in infamy, not just the bombing of Pearl Harbor, but the near sinking of American Magic. I read the article when published and broke my heart. Dean was always a class act, adore him, Joyce Chiarella saying. Monica Diaz, he was also on board Quantum. Yes, he's been sailing with T. Hutch on Quantum, racing with Doug DeVos and co. And, okay, some other. Julia, you always say to go back and read the comments.
Right.
More appropriate than ever. Now, there is, I love these Ineos Britannia videos, and here's yet another one, a new one just out a couple days ago, featuring various members of their team. And bravo Zulu to the team for producing this, them, and including and especially this one. Have a look.
Bledin is a bit of a genius, really. I mean, he's one of the few sailors that you can actually justifiably say is part of the design team and is part of the sailing team. I mean, you hear that a lot, but he actually is. He's that good, he's that smart, and he's a bloody good sailor as well. So he's your perfect America's Cup all-rounder, is how you describe Bledin.
Welsh, Bledin Mon.
That's the first time I remember seeing that name.
I as well, but he's, I think, been with the team. And as Sir Ben said, he's also a member of their design team, which is pretty cool.
That's good.
Okay, here is my I've only got a couple, 3 slides in here, but I can't help myself. I know John Emmett looks so much forward. He looks so forward to this segment on the America's Cup venue. But one of our best sources in Spain, she's on here now, sent this article from Thursday from Sur, the Diario Sur. Malaga's mayor leaving a lunch at a fancy restaurant. I don't think Once was the name of the restaurant, it was something else. But this is the mayor. We've told you about him in the past. And he, in the article, which was very brief, said they were having meetings with NZL reps. Nothing more than that. They didn't say the names of the reps.
This week?
Sorry?
This week?
This week. This was just a couple days ago. And we do know that Grant Dalton has headed to Europe by all accounts. We've heard that from many different sources. And what was really going on, who he was talking to, whether Sir Keith Mills, who's been the agency representing ETNZ and the RNZYS, whether who and all was there, I don't know. But several of you may on here. I'll bet you Pindar knows because he's pretty well plugged in. So again, they've asked for more time. Is all I know is that they've said, we want to do this, but we haven't raised the money. And Daltz can't sign a deal with somebody saying, well, yeah, maybe we'll raise the money, maybe we won't. So now they're headed to Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
How do we know that? Because Las Provincias, which is another series of regional newspapers in Spain, including in Valencia, the Comunidad there, and then also there's Las Provincias. It's also a national paper with their various regional editions. Barcelona is a headline from yesterday. Barcelona is running to host the 2024 Copa America, to which Valencia and Malaga are bidding. This is a Google Trans. The Catalan capital has the involvement of the city council and the Generalitat, which is the regional government, and the provincial council. Yeah, right. Competition is growing, Las Provincias says. To host the 2024 Copa America, Valencia is trying to speed up the chances of hosting the prestigious sailing competition again, while Malaga is asking for more time to finalize its financing plan. Team New Zealand, the defender of the 100 guineas jar, I said it's a Google Trans, has planned to make the official announcement of the new venue on March 31st, or as one of the FOSI suggested to me, that's probably going to be April Fool's Day. Actually be March 30th here. But they have planned to make the announcement on or before, they said, not on. They said on or before March 31st, and at the moment has no intention of extending the deadline, or so they have told Las Provincias. At this juncture, a new city has signed up for the fight. Barcelona prepares its candidacy in extremis. Right. Barcelona has informed Team New Zealand of its intention to become the venue for the next edition of the America's Cup, as published this Friday by La Vanguardia. I don't know that publication. The Catalan candidacy is not yet official, but it has the involvement of the city council, the Generalitat, and the provincial council. The Barcelona Global Association is trying to involve the private sector with 20 days to go. Yeah, right. As the famous Tui beer commercials down, all the billboards down in New Zealand. Yeah, right. Trying to involve, Julia, the private sector. Excuse me. Daltz is going to either announce Jeddah in Saudi Arabia or some other place that we don't know about that he's got money. I wish they'd go back. I just wish they'd go back and do it in the Isle of Wight, in Cowes, or in Southampton, in the Solent. But mark my words, it's still going to end up in Auckland because there's a war in, there's a war in Europe. There's a war in Europe. Prices are going through. We were doing the math this morning on gas. We talk about gas prices now being higher, $7, $8.
Yeah.
At least here in California. Gas prices are going through the roof in Europe. Monica D is telling me this morning that how bad inflation is in Spain, and the costs and the prices of it are going up. And you think the public money, let alone corporate money, is going to be spent on a sailboat race?
A silly sailboat race.
Well, it's a wonderful sailboat race.
Yeah.
Monica Diaz says Auckland. I sure hope it's windy wherever it is.
Yeah.
Ted Ryman is the first. It's our wedding anniversary on the 1st of April. Only Ted Ryman would get married on April 1st. North Shore of Bermuda. Well, there's an interesting point. Monica Diaz says not in Barcelona. There's no wind in Barcelona. There's no wind. It's going to be in Auckland because if they choose some other place, it's going to go to court. I sure is shooting.
And Ben Nichols says they should swallow some pride and return to Bermuda if they'll have him. But why?
Bermuda is also in the Russia. We're going to have a food crisis. We have oil, we have gas. What if you're in Spain and they don't have any oil and gas in Spain? And what if Putin turns the oil and gas off to Germany and the rest of Western Europe, including the Iberian Peninsula, and doesn't ship any more gas and oil there? Excuse me. What about all the wheat that used to come from Ukraine and Russia? What about the fertilizer that comes from Russia that fertilizes most of the 60% of the agriculture in the world, something like that? And this, the way this war in Ukraine is going, we can forget the AC and a lot more besides. I don't know who Marine Images is, but has made my point perfectly.
Yeah.
Monica Diaz saying the crisis is just starting.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I feel, Julia, like we're 2 years ago when we were starting to figure out here because of that cruise ship that came in and the clampdowns here locally.
Right.
And ourselves getting good medical advice from Alfredo and a few others saying, you know, this thing we're hearing from the hospital, medical workers, hey, you know, you better just kind of cool it. This is going to be,
It'll be a while.
This is not just going to flatten the curve until Easter.
Right.
And here we are 2 years later, and they're talking about locking down Shanghai. John Emmett told me this morning, and he said you saw him on his video report. This thing is a serious problem. I'm sorry to say it. We're all headed, and that's why we have to talk about it on this show. To me, this is looking to John Emmett like, what did he say? Like off the top.
A long war.
A long war, increasingly like a long war, the effects of which will last many years and most likely the beginning of the end. We can only hope for Vladimir Putin. One theory I've heard, which of course may or may not be true, and perhaps we may never know how the truth, is that Putin has cancer, and this is why everything is happening now, because he may feel there is nothing else to lose. A liter of petrol, Karen Robertson is saying, is now more expensive than beer. Just as well, we're still working from home and not having to drive. James Bland, USA can make up for any Russian exports. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but we got to start, you're talking about oil, we got to start drilling. You are right, time, hard times ahead. Stingray, if Putin shuts off energy supplies to Europe, we are all in for an awful time. Well, we are anyway.
Yeah.
Cost of sailboats and all the related rigging made of oil, the carbon, related products will be going up and up and up. I'm just worried about bread, Julia.
Yes.
Carbon and sailboats and gas. Yeah, okay. Somebody said, well, if you can't afford the gas for your car, take an Uber. Take a taxi. Excuse me. Jonathan Frank, my father said it reminds him of his war-torn childhood in Poland. Clark Chapin, Porsche has announced that production of virtually all their vehicle lines will be affected because, among other things, an overwhelming percentage of their wiring harnesses come from Ukraine, for the want of a nail. Well, and Emmett, I think he posted it here in the comments, but one of the theories of the reason why that big tank and armored personnel convoy north of Kyiv stopped was because the Russian soldiers did not want to go in and have urban warfare in Kyiv. Now apparently they've all split and gone into the woods and gone into the local towns that are setting up to shell the hell out of Kyiv. Guys, take the cut back to Auckland, relax, put your hand. In fact, Dulce has now got a perfect excuse. Look, I didn't know there was going to be a war. We got a safe country, half a world away from Europe. Let's sit down and try to figure this out because this is a bad situation.
Yeah.
Julie Aarons, I told you I had a great talk with Julie. Is a very bright lady, my age, Julie. I don't know New Zealand law, but I don't think that Judge Ted has legal standing to sue. Well, I'm not worried about that anymore, Julie Aarons. I just think that, this thing's got to be held somewhere. I think it's going to get delayed a year, and it's going to be New Zealand. But how would I know? How would I know?
I'd like to know who Marine Images is. And he just said, today I bought razor wire.
I wonder where he is.
Yeah.
Tell us, Marine Images, if you don't mind.
It's nice to see you on.
I'm going to say this. I wasn't going to, but I have people calling up, friends of ours, FOSI.
Yeah.
Serious people, not and these are not nutcases, saying,
Yeah.
do we have a gun? Do we want a gun? And I'm not going to say if we have a gun here at the Beach Street Yacht Club because I don't want the crooks to know that we do or don't. But, you know, just a simple matter of locking doors and worry about people going up and down the streets. Things are, especially in the big cities here in the U.S., are
Yeah.
a bit dicey.
Yep.
And I'm sure they are elsewhere in the world. People in Ukraine are starving. They don't have food. They don't have medicines. They don't have shelter. Our hearts go out to all of you, and God forbid it extends across Europe, let alone the world. Graham Sweeney, Northern Isles. Oh, that's Graham. Okay, he's on YouTube. That's enough about the venue. Just take it back to New Zealand now, please, so we can have the entertainment, the joy of watching the Cup. The sailors can be employed. They can go back to a safe venue, hopefully safe, and we'll watch the fighting. Those of you who, God forbid, this extends beyond, you know.
Yeah, I just don't think we have an idea of what's going on.
Well, who would know? Okay, I'm going to ask now if it's correct or Crutonic. A related question, and it's the much bigger picture question, because I'm starting to feel like this is 1937. I'm starting to feel like we're at the end, Julia, of the J-boat era. We've gone through the wonderful 20s, and now we're into the 30s, and we've had these fantastic J-boats, and we've had Cup defenses 30, 34, and 37, and huge, big, technologically complex, expensive boats with rich guys funding them and everybody having a good time. But now we've got war, we've got pestilence, we got famine, we got God knows what else in the Cup. And I got this comment this morning from a FOSI. I won't name him or her, but he said, Tom, this thing, you all are nuts, basically. And we all, because he's also a big Cup fan and may even have an involvement from time to time. Too technologically complex, limited experienced personnel to hire, too many sideshows, weak and terrorized yacht clubs, meaning the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, lack of management continuity, no long-term vision with broad buy-in, unnecessarily expensive to compete, too few competitors, exactly, no event and defender management separation. You know, it used to be the challengers did their thing. And the defender ran the match. Venue prostitution. Putin-like management. I wouldn't even call Grant Dalton Putin. The other day somebody called him Hitler or Putin. That's unfair. That's not correct. Dalton is just trying to do a good job for his team, for his club, for his gang, but he's kind of lost the plot here as the world has overtaken all of us, including, I think, Mr. Dalton. Venue prostitution, but other than that, the America's Cup is in fine health, Julia.
Yes.
Is that correct or Crutonic?
I think he's correct.
What do the rest of you think? Is that correct or Crutonic? I ask you. Are we in 1937? Is this correct or Crutonic? But other than that, the America's Cup is in fine health. Yep, Blake Middleton is saying. Ed Worley, I think you are correct. The current boats are way too expensive. The Cup needs to go back to its roots. Well, the boats are always expensive. We always went through these cycles, Ed, where they got technologically more complex, like in the turn of the century, 1900, when Reliance was so huge and so technologically complex and expensive. Finally, they put a rule in and said, we got to bring this back under control. Same with the J-boats in the 30s, and the comments are coming fast and furious. Ted Ryman, correct. Ben Nichols, Stuart Childerley is the new J-class secretary, Olympic sailor, and Olympic PRO. He's a great hire. Agree, Ben. Totally agree. But the J's aren't in the Cup. On balance, the Putin comparison aside, completely correct. With an exclamation point, Clark Chapin says. Gordon Smith disagrees. He says it's Crutonic. Okay. What else? Did I miss any earlier comments? Stingray and John Emmett are going back and forth. It's hard to guess the morale of both sides. I hope Ukraine gets the Polish aircraft ASAP because this will make a huge difference. Yeah, it will. And it might also further aggravate the whole situation. I don't know the answer to that. Emmett is saying there's now a volunteer fighting force of around 20,000 and growing. It is hard to understand the scale of this. Stingrays thinks that sadly the cities in Ukraine will begin surrendering after the pummeling gets even more atrocious. J. Frederick Glenn, yes, the cancer story has been reported a lot, but of course it could be Western propaganda. After all, Hitler only had one. What? Only had one. Bill Canfield thinks this is correct. I don't know if it's correct or Crutonic. I suspect it's correct, Julia.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're in 37. I think we've outgrown ourselves. I think the world has passed us by. It'll take us a while to figure that out. I do think Mr. Dalton's a very smart man, as I think Mr. Dunphy is. I think the political leadership down in New Zealand is not so smart, but sooner or later, somehow, some way, they'll figure out. And if Grant says, I'm not going to deal with Kiwi Home Defense, and Kiwi Home Defense says, okay, just bring the cut back here, and we will take a back seat. Great.
Fog Machine says, would holding the AC and J-class boats be less expensive? It'd certainly be more majestic, and it might have more participation.
I don't think it would be less expensive. Those boats are built, a new build in a J-class would be huge.
Why do it? Well,
it'd be huge. I don't know it'd be any more than these current boats, but the old boats, J's and 12s had a, yeah, here's Ed Worley's comment.
Yes.
Had a life after the cut boats and are just parked, and the new boats, that they don't have an afterlife. That's John Sangmeister makes that point every time he's on here. Many others do as well. Jonathan Frank, he says, I think it's closer to 1939. Well, maybe. Canadian Sniper Wally in IVF for UKR. Wow, okay. It's September 39, Julie Aaron says. Very hard to predict. It's correct. We got to rationalize the America's Cup. Well, you know, maybe the rationalization is maybe we are in 19, not just 39. Maybe the Cup doesn't happen again. You know, there was the hiatus from 37 until 58. 21 years hiatus. Mm-hmm. There was also the hiatus during World War I from 19. If Hamish Ross is on here, he'll remind me, but it was to be a cup in the teens, and then World War I broke out, and there wasn't a cup until, 1920? So there was that break, too, from
and interestingly enough, the world doesn't revolve around the America's Cup.
Exactly. I mean, so spot on, as usual. Julia is spot on as usual. What about other comments here? 20 to 30 million for a new J, Bill Campy. Yeah, I think the boats are not that expensive, Bill, but the R&D that would go into it and the number of people on the boat, if you were crewing them with 20 or 30 people. Reliance, Kimball Livingston, Commodore Livingston is on here.
Yeah.
1903 had no afterlife. Reliance got melted down, didn't it, Kimball, for use in World War I eventually. Marine Images, that's Gordon Smith. Is that who we think Marine Images is? The Dutch yards that make those J-boats are fully booked with super yacht orders. Well, they were. Mm-hmm. We'll see if that now comes to a screeching halt. Bring back the IACC class. The boats are still out there, and freeze the design for now. Kimball Livingston, still remembered as a great one with 50% copy at the Hershoff Museum, or maybe it's I think it's smaller than 50. I think it was a 1/12, isn't it, Kimball? Of Reliance. I just wish that KHD would put their money where their mouth is, put the money from PR into supporting the team. Well, I think they will help, Julie, whether they've got the full nut that they say. But guess what? We will find out next Tuesday, because I will press Mr. Mark Dunphy, who will be our guest on Tuesday's show.
Look forward to that.
Emmett, well, in 39, the Soviet Union annexed the Second Polish Republic, which is the area as Ukraine. Yep. Sale cost for the J-class is not to be believed as well. Yeah, just the number of bodies on the J-class yachts would be Steve Gruber, I agree, plus the sale cost. Kimball Livingston went to the scrapyard 1 month after winning the Cup. Oh, did it? Well, yeah, in fact, Kimball was Reliance the boat that was a big battery? Did they use some different metals that caused the keel and the hull and the fittings? Yeah, I think some of them.
Oh, yes.
Kimball, remember that, being the historian and bright guy, and he is. Russia GDP number 11. Russia 1.5. Yeah, they're number 11. Hitler invaded Poland March 1, 1939. Maybe it is 39. The Ukrainians will not surrender regardless of the shelling or suffering, which, very mixed metals, Kimball is saying, than that boat in Reliance. It was fizzing. It was, as they say in New Zealand, it was a fizza. Literally, it was a fizza. Where's Leonard Takahashi when we need him?
Yeah.
Yeah, if this is 39, and if Stingray, well, if Emmett and others are right, we're in for a long haul here. Because let's say that, I don't know what Putin's thinking. He goes in and he takes over Ukraine. They have, how many, it's population of what?
30 million?
Was it that many?
Yeah.
Okay, and a lot of them have left. 2-3 million people by now have left, women and children and maybe a few others. But I mean, that alone, imagine. Okay, I'm beyond the, what was the cutoff? It was 18 to 60?
Yeah.
But they said men of 18 to 60, don't leave, stay here.
Right.
We won't let you out of the country. But even I, at age, nearly 70, I would leave. I can pick up a gun and defend the Beach Street Yacht Club.
You better.
Anybody coming down Beach Street here?
Right.
Or into the cross streets?
Yeah.
We'd have our own little Beach Street Yacht Club militia, the St. Fancy militia.
Yeah.
Kimball Livingston, we'd go guard his place and our place.
Yeah.
No, seriously. At age, even at 70. But can you imagine, though, being one of those men at any age and having to say, Julia, get on the train, not just to Calistoga, but get the hell out of here, go to New Zealand, go to Australia, go to Hawaii maybe.
Yeah.
And you having to put you on the plane, or in this case, the train, to go to Poland or wherever, and you're not sure if we're ever going to see each other again, because I may probably would at my advanced age. I'd stumble and hit my head on the bookshelf and be out of commission.
I also remember the Japanese thing, warning, which they said during World War II, instructed their army not to invade the U.S. because every house has a gun in it.
Well, exactly. That's why people don't break into homes in Michigan, because there's everybody in Michigan's a hunter.
Yeah.
You got a gun? Oh, yeah, I'm a hunter. I've never hunted anything in my life, but we had a gun in the house. My dad taught us all at age 10 or 11 how to use it to fend off the banditos, if there were ever. Because, you're 15, it's like the Lake District in England. You're a long way from the nearest constable, the nearest sheriff.
Right.
And by the time you called them and they got out in their car and got 20 minutes out to you, you would be...
Yeah, gone.
You'd be stolen. You'd be robbed.
Yeah.
Or worse. 40 million people in Ukraine, Ted Ryman is saying. Joyce Chiarella, I'd fly in a New York minute to defend the Beach Street Yacht Club. Never piss off a Sicilian.
Yay.
Thank you, Joyce.
You're elected.
Hey, you know what? I just noticed on my screen here, I can't use that shot because my camera's upside down, but I can fix that.
Yes.
I can fix that because I like that shot. And we can't have that. If I want to use the comments in that picture-in-picture, I got to fix that, Julia.
Well.
There we go.
There we go.
On the fly, live television.
Yay.
Yeah, it is a terrible situation. John Mangino, Julia's been back. She was back last week. Thanks again to David James for filling in. The European Union will not have any dollars to fund the cup races. They're going to deal with refugees and food crisis. Yeah, I think we are headed for a serious food crisis, Ed Worley. Julia, do you agree?
I think so. I think we're luckier than most because we've got a lot of farming around us. But if I were in the middle of any city or in the desert, I think I'd be a little worried.
I do too. The Afghanistan war lasted more than a decade. John Emmett is reminding us. James Bland, duty is heavier than a mountain. Death is lighter than a feather. Clark Chapin, I don't know, upside down. It might have been appropriate for reading comments from folks down under. At least we can keep a sense of humor here, Julia.
Absolutely.
Let's go to the videos. We got in 2 weeks' time, hopefully. I mean, I've heard nothing that SailGP is being delayed or called off or anything. And hopefully it will happen here in a big way. We need some entertainment. We need some sailing, some great world-class sailing. And it's going to happen, I think, across the globe, maybe not Europe, but at least here in San Francisco. In 2 weeks' time, SailGP is here. Have a look at this video with Hannah Mills.
My name's Hannah Mills and I'm an athlete for the Great Britain SailGP team. So I grew up in Cardiff, but I actually learnt to sail down in Cornwall on a family holiday and just fell in love. And when we went back to Cardiff, begged my mum and dad to let me carry on, and then I properly learnt to sail on this tiny little reservoir called Llanishen Reservoir. I was always very competitive growing up. I loved all sports, any sport. As soon as there was racing mentioned, that was me. I was just sold. I was about 11 years old, I think, at an Optimist competition, and I think Ben had just got back from his first Olympics in Atlanta with a silver medal, and he came and did a little sort of Q&A with the sailors, and that was kind of the first time that I realised sailing was in the Olympics, and that was the moment where I was like, right, that's what I want to do. Pretty much everything I did from that point on was around trying to make that dream a reality. I love the performance side and pushing yourself and being out of your comfort zone, and obviously I'm a competitor. I love performing and I love racing, and that's always kind of what drives me on that side of things, to be the best I possibly can be for the team and for myself. But then also for SailGP, I love what they stand for. I love the purpose and the impact side of what they're doing, and I strongly believe that sport has a massive role to play in inspiring the next generation, particularly to being the best they can be, but when it comes to our planet and what we can do to try and change the course we're currently on. So yeah, I think it has a huge role to play, and I'm excited to be a part of that. So I guess my background in helming the 470, STEM's played quite a big part behind the scenes without me necessarily realising. For A-levels at university, I did physics and maths and engineering, so I've got a bit of a STEM background myself, although I wouldn't say necessarily excelled in it. But I think just sort of that analytical approach is really, really crucial. The way you assess risk and manage that risk, and you're just constantly weighing up the stats and the potential positives and negatives of every decision you're making. But then also off the water, you know, with the way you're setting up the boat, the sail design, the mast selection, the sort of properties of the mast, the properties of the boats, it's all relative, and it's all important, and it all kind of leads back to STEM. So yeah, it's been a big part of my career. It's easy growing up, particularly for girls, to think that, oh, it's not quite for me, or I'm not good enough, or it's probably someone else better suited. But actually, it probably isn't. You know, if you grab that opportunity, learn as much as you can from the people around you, there's no reason you can't do anything just as well as anyone else.
Julia, do you want to do the outro from that video?
She's terrific.
Exactly. You don't need to say anything more than that. She's just there's comments on here. What an inspiration, Jonathan Frank is saying, for young girls to look up to. What an inspiration for anybody to look up to.
Absolutely.
If I were a young boy and saw that, hey, she's bright, she's got STEM, she's likes the risk management.
Right.
That sounds like a sport where, you know, maybe it's kind of a cool sport.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know, we keep talking about this, what the cause and effect is. If it's the sport attracts people who are already bright and well organized and, you know, have both sides of their brain work, like I always say about John Marshall and people like that, who are leaders of men and women, or if the sport creates people like that, I suspect it's a virtuous
I think it is
circle,
too.
right?
Yeah. One hones the other.
One can only hope. She deserves a Bravo Zulu. I totally agree, and I like these videos. I like these SailGP videos focusing on the people. Mm-hmm. Focusing on the people. Replying to Ted Ryman, must keep the baguettes on the shelf. Yeah, from France, the wheat, Ted. We bounce around on here from famine to feast to famine, and wheat from France. Ukraine is about 10% of the worldwide wheat supply, John Emmett is saying. That is significant, especially for the countries where it is the sole. That's my point.
Yeah.
That is what I tell my daughter, Ed Worley, saying, yes, what an inspiration for young girls. I completely agree. But it's just an inspiration for people, I think.
Absolutely.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Speaking
of inspirations, we have, we're an hour and 35 minutes into this show. And I've had this is a bit of an evergreen video from one of our FOSI. And he's done a video for us before, Peter Taylor of New York. Mm-hmm. And he has done another superb video. The first one, remember, was about frostbite sailing at Larchmont Yacht Club. Mm-hmm. This is about radio-controlled yachts at the Raritan Yacht Club. It's a terrific video. And before I play it, there we go. He sent me a note this morning. He said, Tom, I asked him to come on the show live and introduce the video, and we'd do some questions. But he said, I apologize, I can't join you live today. He told me yesterday or the day before. But I thought you, Julie, and the FOSI might like this short piece on radio-controlled winter laser racing. John Emmett will like this. Off New York City, Raritan, New Jersey. Enjoy. And then he said, by the way, In the de Tocquevillian tradition, he's teasing me here, I decided to exert local control and claim the Beach Street Yacht Club New York City station as mine. See the lower right corner there?
Yeah.
He's got the Beach Street Yacht Club. Oh, I get to use camera 4.
Yeah.
He's got the Beach Street Yacht Club Burgee, which, as Kimball Livingston will know, who's a member of Beach Street Yacht Club.
Yeah.
That's the St. Francis Burgee, because so many of our original members were St. Francis members. We've replaced the 2 stars tongue-in-cheek with a guitar and a glass of red wine, Julia. Yes, Peter, the New York station. That means whenever we're in New York, you got to entertain us all. Peter Taylor, have a look at this really cool video.
Hello, Tom, Julia, and FOSI. I want to conclude my winter sailing series by moving to a yacht club south of New York City, with a winter focus on boats even smaller than the Interclub dinghy, which I profiled at Larchmont Yacht Club in episode 491. The place is Raritan Yacht Club, founded in 1865 when Perth Amboy was a New Jersey summer resort. The club is located where the Raritan River meets the lower bay, the Raritan Bay. It's about 15 or 16 miles, 25 kilometers in the straight line southwest of the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. Unlike at Larchmont and other venerable Long Island Sound clubs, Raritan's location has no problem getting a summer sea breeze. It does, however, often feel the full impact of major Atlantic storms in the area. The club and its mooring field are also adjacent to the Arthur Kill Channel, which commercial traffic used to navigate between the western end of Staten Island and New Jersey. This channel is a boundary between the states of New York and New Jersey. I first came to Raritan Yacht Club by water 5 years ago. The New York Harbor Sailing Foundation arrived on the 2 remaining America II 12 meters, US 42 and US 46, which Tom knows well, to take the club's youth sailors out for their first big boat sails. The club reciprocated with a rolled out red carpet and amazingly generous hospitality. At the end of last year, however, I returned by land in freezing temperatures and a biting breeze. While the fantastic hospitality remained, a large number of Raritan members have since decided to give radio-controlled laser sailing a try. What started as an experiment several years ago has become a popular winter pastime here. Club members now have an additional social outlet during winter months, if they'd rather not frostbite on a Flying Scot. The first order of business is getting set up on the docks and making sure one's kit does not blow into the water in the process. This was a challenge on the day I came out. It was a bit of a shock to see a laser with a relatively massive fixed keel, but it did work well. Pre-check is a matter of verifying the batteries, radio receiver, and selecting a sail. There are 3 sail plans, roughly analogous to full-scale 4.7, radial, and standard rigs. After some pre-regatta socializing, it's time to race. Into the water they go. The pre-race warm-up confirms sail choice and overall readiness, as best as one can. One of the best sailors told me it took him about a year to figure out these boats, and successfully transition from full-scale boat racing. The race begins. The initial upwind leg can get a bit messy, when the fleet is tight and newbies are trying to find the right touch on their radio transmitters. Gaining an in-the-boat perspective is also challenging. Winter sun glare makes judging distance and piloting the boats tricky, particularly at distance, especially approaching the edge of transmitter range. Mark rounding typically seemed to be less precise and elegant with radio-controlled boats, but remains quite exciting. Heading off the wind, you suddenly realize that you cannot move body weight around, which requires some tactical accommodation. One particular hazard is outrunning the range of your radio transmitter. Fortunately, there's a recovery boat on standby before the out-of-control boat heads into the commercial traffic lane and eastward into the Atlantic, towards Weymouth and John Emmett. All in all, a pretty fine way to spend a winter afternoon.
Bravo Zulu, Peter Taylor.
Yes.
Another, that's his
really?
second video.
Yeah.
And, you know, Gordon Smith's done a video for us. John does one every week. And once again, if anybody wants to do videos for us, for the show, you know, you get thousands of people will be watching, and maybe you've got other ways of doing it. I hope he posts it on YouTube. Maybe I'll take that video and post it as a, what's the word I want, as a, you know, as a separate video on our YouTube channel.
Yeah. And Gestad.
Well, Gestad Yacht Club in the pool. I mean, we're using the radio-controlled yachts up
Yeah.
in Gestad Yacht Club in Switzerland for that match racing. Ted Ryman, they look like a lot of fun. Nice video. Jonathan Frank, what a fantastic activity. Janice Davis, my beloved mother. Tommy, do you remember the expensive large toy sailboat I gave you? Yes. Julia?
Yeah, no.
I'm not sure I do, but I said yes anyway. Just Thanks,
How
Mom.
could you forget?
Well, I love this video and how interesting. Gordon Smith, our backyard, very nice. John Mangino, yeah, who's up in that neck of the woods. Great stuff, Patrick Dyer. Blake Middleton, I'm sure John E. would be able to recover Peter's radio control laser all the way across the pond. He'd probably be coaching the owner.
Yeah,
Right, Julia?
Right.
How to better run his Ilka radio controlled yacht. Thank you again, Peter Taylor. Great stuff indeed. That brings us to the D block. I've just got a couple, 3 funnies, one of which Julia will like, one of which she won't.
Yes.
Yeah, historically, there was an America's Cup race in that area. There were quite a few of them, actually. Someday we're going to get this guy on the show.
Yes.
Someday. Whiskey, Tango, Foxtrot, this segment. Sermon, what is hell? Come here, our pianist. I don't think they meant the pianist was bad. Okay, it's clean, right?
Yes.
Well, this next one, Julia. For heaven's sakes, will someone please tell her it's a mushroom? Oh, Fred.
Oh.
Aren't you going to wave your finger at that one?
Yes.
I knew you would. But it is funny.
It is funny.
And it's clean.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
You got to, after all this talk and all this stuff we're going through, COVID and now the bloody war, you got to have something that's funny. Now, this came from Clark Chapin.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this was funny. You can see, does that statue really, I mean, I don't know who the statue really is, Clark. Obviously, that somebody has photoshopped, I guess, a Putin-esque head down there at the foot, and it's been chopped off. And you know who that is, whose head that is now on top.
Yes. Walensky.
It's Zelensky, exactly. Fred was always a fun guy. Yeah. So thanks. You see, now that's, I don't know who all those other guys are. The only one I recognize is in the lower right, this guy here behind. That's Lazarov. Is that his name? Lazarov, who is the foreign minister. Who looks like Lurch. He looks like he's about to fall over anytime soon.
Mm.
Thanks to our Super FOSI, who does a lot of behind-the-scenes work for us on this show. Donatello's, is it David? Maybe it is David. I thought that at first, and I thought, oh, no, it's not. Is that David dressed up? I mean, the tunic and all that stuff looks real. It doesn't look like it was photoshopped.
Yeah.
Okay, it was Donatello's David in Florence and Firenze dressed up like that. Thank you, Clark. Susan Epstein liked she liked it. Okay. That gets us through that segment. Julia, to the not the starting line, the finish line.
Yes.
And here we want to say,
yes, share us with the world. Like, follow, and share.
Yeah, that's more important than ever for us. It does help get more people see the show. It helps us with the algorithm. Comments are welcome too, even in replay, as we always say. Support us on Patreon. Thank you, whether it's my mother or Mark Reed, who's now become a patron, and a few others in the last couple, 3 weeks. We really appreciate it. Patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. And just a friendly reminder that next week, after we go on daylight time, the show here in the U.S. and other places in the world where you have gone on daylight time will air an hour later, 1300 Pacific, 1600 Eastern. But that is 2000 UTC. We are not changing our standard worldwide time. We'll always use UTC, 2000 UTC for our starting time, so your time will not change in New Zealand, Australia, and at least Europe, at least not for now. Mr. Dunphy, Mark Dunphy, will be our guest on Tuesday. He, the head of the Kiwi Home Defense. We hope you can join us for that. He'll be live via Skype from Auckland. Thanks to all of the providers, not purveyors, they provide them for nothing, for our various video and audio. Julia, last word to you.
Oh, just everybody hold on. Think good thoughts and do whatever you can.
Is that Hercules after slaying Medusa? I don't know. Somebody more erudite than I.
Hercules was bigger, wasn't he? I don't know.
I always love the finish line photo with the MC Scout. Thank you all. Thanks to all of you. Too many clothes for Donatello. That's what I thought. So it must be something else. Thank you, Julia and Tomas. Thank you, Blake. Thanks to all of you. Hope to see you on Tuesday. In the meantime, have a great weekend, a safe weekend wherever in the world you are. And if you can, of course, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.